This is episode 27 in the Deal or Disaster series, where we look at online listings for pro audio equipment and sound systems and talk about the deals, the system configurations, and of course I try to share any memories and stories I have with the gear we see. And thank you to everyone who is helping this series grow and become more of an educational resource by sharing their memories and stories in the comments below. It's really fun, and thanks again. Starting things off here with a JBL 5674 cinema system that somebody seems to be taking out and using for live sound. That's a interesting choice, moving these things around that often. But let's take a read and you can take a look as ever. Complete turnkey JBL Pro Cinema Series sound system, 24-channel Soundcraft UI24R digital wireless mixer. There's a Rain AC22 and AC23 crossovers included, as well as 4 amplifiers. A Samson EQ, Crown Microtech 2400, QSC MX700, QSC PLX 1804, and an EV 1.5K amp. They say everything works as it should, sounds way beyond amazing. It will blow your mind. I control everything with my iPad, which is not included in the sale. All wires plus cords are included though. These speakers cost over $20,000 in 2006, and that's not including any electronic components whatsoever. They use 5 complete stacks of these at the theater they hold the Oscars in down in Southern California. This listing is for 2 complete stacks with all the electronics to run them, plus the 24-channel mixer. Everything is on brand new casters. People are really into those new casters in these listings lately. With an extra set of cabinets for the high-frequency horns in case you don't have a 10-foot ceiling. You're looking at top-of-the-line JBL Pro sound system for a large movie theater. Think they are rated for something like 1,200 people. Here's the rack here of all the outboard gear and the mixer, and that looks pretty clean, to be fair. Very tall rack for what's in there. They've left quite a bit of space for airflow, and that could probably be reduced down to a much smaller rack, but nothing wrong with what they've done here if they've got the space for it. The diamond-shaped 4x15 base cabinets will knock you down. Unless you're doing thousands of people in an outdoor setting, there's just no need for 18-inch subs. These things pump a lot of air. But the best part of these speakers is the mid-range horns. I run all of my systems in stereo, and you can stand directly in front of one stack and clearly hear the mid-range on the other side. They have such a broad and wide dispersion that the sweet spot in the room becomes huge. The digital wireless Soundcraft UI24R mixer is the heart and soul of this system. It has all the signal processing and effects you need, and way more than that. If you play guitar with the first 2 channels, you can leave your guitar amp at home. Pick a cabinet, pick a manufacturer, add a Lexicon processor, whatever chorus, delay, parametric, EQ, gate, etc. you want. I could go on and on. I think you have gone on and on at this point, goodness. The video is from a beautiful outdoor wedding I did recently, just before the wedding party and everyone came in. These speakers sound badass, and they are no joke. They are amazing, brilliant, crystal clear, and clean, with low end that will knock you down. They are in super nice shape, have always been well cared for, and used in a home environment for the past few years. Obviously, notwithstanding the time they hauled them out to a barn to do a wedding. And here we are with them in the living room, dining area of the condo, which seems to be a popular place to keep sound systems like this, as we have seen time and time again in these listings. I'm confused. If these sound so epic and amazing, why do we need these? And is this like a Bose PA, like stick PA here as well? I don't see another one of those, but man, what a collection of stuff for one guy squawking out a few tunes on a guitar. If you are in the market for a cinema sound system, maybe $7,000 could be a good deal for you for these, but I'm really not sure anybody else would want to own these for any other purpose. Like taking these out and doing weddings with them is insanity, and I think you're probably going to end up destroying these moving them around that much. They just weren't designed for that kind of thing. I thought some of you might find this one interesting, out of Sheffield, Lake, Ohio. For a professional sound system, $200. And the thing I thought you would find interesting here was the ShowCo amplifier. This is a ShowCo D1250 here that we can see, all original, a little bit of rust. There's some other stuff in the rack here, an Audio Centron, a PVCS 800, but the ShowCo D1250, I was hoping some of you might have some memories or information or stories to share about those. It looks like Doman's Musicland had a label on that at some point, but there's the CS800. There's the back of the ShowCo amp. And you can see here even where one has its AC lead out to power, and then the other one is just plugged into the utility outlet on the back of the first unit. The photos aren't quite clear enough, unfortunately, to make out a date on that back label. And the listing essentially says this is untested. I buy storage units, and this was in one that I bought, $200 pickup in Sheffield Lake. If the ad is still up, it's available. No holds, so on and so forth.
Your choice, your clear choice, WJBR TV 21.
You can't beat this out of Burbank, California for free. Large professional desk made of wood, used for audio mixing, producing, comes in 2 separate pieces on rollers. Burbank, come get it for free. And it looks like it's in pretty nice shape. There's space on the sides for rack gear, space in the center for whatever console this fit originally, maybe an O2R. It looks like there may be some damage, or that could just be some gaff tape left over on the front corner there. But that's a heck of a deal either way in Burbank, assuming you have room for it. And you would definitely need a truck and some friends to help you shift it. All right, now we got something interesting. Renkus Heinz NBC TV 12-inch horn PA speakers, a pair of them, Vintage Pro Audio for $450 out of La Mirada, California. Vintage Renkus Heinz 12-inch horn PA speakers, ex-NBC TV. These aren't your average PA cabs. These came straight out of NBC TV and still have the studio stencils on the top. They're loaded with Renkus Heinz 12-inch drivers and horn assemblies built into heavy-duty broadcast cabinets meant for real studio work, not bar band abuse. People come up with some really hilarious ways of describing stuff. And again, under the features, we've got the Renkus Heinz 12-inch speakers with the integrated high-frequency horn, network-stamped NBC TV studio cabinets, that's listed as a feature, XLR input plate on the rear, thick reinforced broadcast enclosures. They really are harping on that broadcast. And we can see that they're definitely made out of some pretty heavy-duty ply here all around. Vintage rare super collectible. That's questionable, honestly. Great for studios, collectors, restoration, or display. Condition: dusty from storage. Easy cleanup. Like, if they're just dusty, give them a dust. That's not going to affect the value. Cones and horns look solid. Cabinets are original, untested. Like, come on, test the speakers. Selling as is? So in my mind, that means they don't work. Why they're valuable. Broadcast gear, especially big horn monitors from major networks, has a strong... This is Chat GPT. Get out of here with that. A strong collector market. Get out of here. NBC provenance pushes these higher than standard PA speakers. Like... These don't look particularly special, and, you know, if you're a big NBC TV studio collector, maybe you'd be excited about these, but honestly, having spent a lot of years in the vintage guitar world, I know people that could make a set of these look just like this, just this old, if you ask them to today. So whether or not these have any historic value or significance, just because they have some NBC TV lettering stenciled on, very questionable. You know, if you're going to talk about provenance in a listing, you better have some paperwork or a photo of them in the studio or some sort of other, you know, material that you can show that would establish that provenance other than materials that any one of us could go buy at the hardware store and put together. So $450 for these sounds very ambitious to me, but maybe they will find a collector who gets, you know, drawn in by the story, because that's really all you've got here. And those are Speakon inputs on the back, so thankfully not XLR connectors, which wouldn't be terribly unusual for, you know, the time period that these may have been made. And obviously we've got Fly hardware on the top, and it looks like at some point they had some Velcro grill cloths on some frames probably there. And I would imagine these were just, audience monitors in some studio, or a backstage monitor, or just some sort of utility monitor being used in or around the set.
KBBU, TV5, Henderson and Las Vegas.
We've looked at a handful of pretty unusual distros on the channel, including the previous episode to this one, actually. But this really goes above and beyond in the bizarre category. They've built this into what looks like a keyboard case or a DJ case, maybe. And they've set it up so that you have to keep it stood up and open like this during use, because the input cable, which just looks like thin black Romex, has been hardwired. So if this was to fall over somehow while it was powered up and these were to bite down on this, that would be an unfortunate situation for sure. And then we can see on the backside, they've added all of these receptacles, which I can tell you from experience, if you plug in locking connectors and a whole bunch of cables to this thing is absolutely going to fall over, and this empty lid is absolutely going to slam closed. So that's not an if, that's a definitely going to happen kind of situation. And this is just bizarre. Like, nobody should be doing this. The people that come and play music and stand on your stage, whether it's indoors or outdoors, don't know that you've done this. They do not know that you've put them at this kind of risk with such a shoddy assembly here. And whether or not you've ever considered it, anybody that walks up onto a stage to perform and interact with your sound equipment is trusting you inherently that you're providing a safe system and that you're not going to electrocute them. And DIYing something like this is just bananas. I'll read the description briefly here, but 50 amp clean power setup in a wheeled road case, perfect for live sound or DJ. It's a Siemens panel. Looks like they're using 8 gauge wire. Is that what they're saying there? 8-3 wire on the inlet side. 9 individual breaker 20 amp receptacles, 1 30 amp 220 volt receptacle. I have more than this invested. I bet you do. The wheeled road case alone was $320, priced to move, located in Columbus Grove, Ohio. I just don't understand why somebody would spend this kind of money to DIY something like this with all of the commercially available options that are out there now. 20 years ago, it was way more understandable because it was harder to find this kind of stuff. Not that you couldn't buy professional distros 20 years ago. You absolutely could, but it was at least more understandable that people would get misguided and put something together like this. And really the only safe thing to do with this would be to disassemble it and make sure nobody gets hurt by it in the future, because this is absolutely not going to age well. We can see just kind of how shoddy the work is all around. Even if you thought this was a good idea, the execution is poor, and it's not going to get better with more use or more traveling or more time. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, though. That looks a lot like Hartford Sound's logo. This is a TSG audio line array, System 600, each one 12 available. Did I just have a stroke reading that? This is a TSG audio line array system with an I. 600 for each one, and they have 12 available. Wow. You'd almost think that Facebook is charging by the letter to put these ads up like the old classified ads, the way some people word these things. And again, we just have TSG audio line array system, again with an I, 12 available cables and bumpers come with it. There they are, the individual cabinets. I have never seen these or heard of them before personally. And here's the back panel. I think those are NL8 inputs. You got switches to choose between active and passive. And it looks like they've also affixed some information about powering them and flying them to the actual cabinets themselves. If you've seen a TSG line array in action before, let us know what we're looking at.
This is KWGN TV in Denver.
We'll just stop on this one briefly since it is a for hire listing, but this is a very clean Danley system out of Las Vegas, and they've got 12 of the TH118XL subs there, 2 of the SH96HO mains, 4 of the DNA 20K 4 amps, and then they also have another pair of the TH118 and 2 of the SM80 monitors for DJ booth monitoring. They say they can break the system down for smaller setups, and there we can see those monitors being used as either front fills or just front of house for the smaller event here. And there's the amp rack that could not possibly be any cleaner. Absolutely love how clean this is. The lids that store in the case, very, very nice setup going on here. I found this one interesting because at some point or another, I have owned every single piece of gear in this rack with the exception of the mini disc player. $1,800 for the whole deal. JBL Tascam DBX Rain custom professional audio setup in good working condition, ideal for church, studio events, or serious audio use. Includes JBL M Pro MP255S, so there are speakers included, it looks like here. I wish a lot of times people would just take a couple steps back in these photos and let us have a look at everything and like the overall condition as opposed to these super zoomed in like pictures of the logos. Multiple Tascam units, CD, dual cassette, mini disc, CD recorder, Furman PL8, Lexicon MPX200. There was an MPX1 in there as well, I think. I hope that's included. And here's another rack with like a 5-disc CD changer, it looks like. Interesting. Drive rack PA. That must be the DBX processor. I'm having a hard time understanding if they're selling all of this or if everything they're showing is included for $1,800, and that's one thing. But the original listing here kind of read like they were just selling this rack that they made the video about. Like this is a pretty big shock rack, but the foam looks like it's spoiling, and I don't know how much life is really left in that before you'd have to pull it apart and re-foam it, which is kind of a big pain in the butt. So overall, I'm kind of left with more questions than answers on that one, but there's definitely some gear in there that you could make some money on if everything was included and you could get it for a good price. You could resell some of it, keep the stuff you wanted. The problem with this listing is there isn't really one piece of gear that I think anybody would be all that interested in, going to all that trouble for. So that's a tough one and a confusing one for $1,800.
Stereo Vision, KMSG TV, Sanger, Fresno.
We've got an Avid venue profile digital mixer console with stage and front of house racks for $13,995 2 weeks ago only out in San Jose, California. Let me know if you think that's a reasonable price on a profile. Just looking at this first photo here, anybody who has sold or bought one recently will know the number off the top of their head, but I'll read through and see what's included while you have a look at the rest of the pictures. This DigiDesign, now Avid Venue Profile, is a compact digital mixing console designed for live sound, theater, studio, and broadcast applications, offering the same software and processing power as the larger D-Show console in a smaller footprint. It is highly regarded for its integration with Pro Tools for live recording and its ability to run professional plugins. Key console features and specifications. I'm not going to read through all this because this is all just marketing material again. Let's get down to anything unique to this list and components. Here we go. Profile surface, main console, 2 little lights, a cover, a keyboard, and a mouse. The front of house rack houses the computer and 4 DSP engines. Version 3.1.1 also has the IO-X expansion card installed. Stage rack provides 48 mic line inputs and 24 outputs, and that is also expandable. We can see that right here. It includes a 300-foot coax cable snake. All cases are included. Console case is made by Ascot Cases. Rack cases are shock-mounted with retractable doors. Snake case is made by Space Case Co. And they've added a note here that the console has been professionally maintained and everything works as it should. See pics and video. RAM latch NG2. not included. And here we can see on the back of the unit, they've got some fan panels with some speed controls. They've got the I/O panel for the coax connections. So overall, a very nicely put together package here. And I think in the next one, we can see that RAM latch that they're saying is not included. And there's the I/O panel. I think this is the stage side here for the coax connectors. There is the 4 coax connector snake that they were talking about in a trunk, wrapped figure 8, very nice. And here is the entire package in its cases, ready to go down the road. Shout out to the D&B rig in the background. Love that. So $13,995 dropped down from $14,950 in just 2 weeks. I think most of us have mixed more shows than we can remember on these, the D show, and also, of course, the SC48 that we've seen in recent episodes of this series. And those have started to come down dramatically in price. Like, you could go and grab one of those for nothing nowadays, but $13,995 for a venue profile. Would you still buy one of these nowadays? It's getting really tough with these digital consoles because there's kind of a break point between, like, yeah, this is an insane deal at that price for what this would have cost anybody in the past. But would you still get into one of these for almost 15 grand? It's no doubt that $14,000 is a fraction of what this would have cost new. I guess I just wonder, with these consoles, these larger consoles, these more expensive packages, as they are starting to age out of relevance for the folks that own them currently, who is the secondary market for a package like this? Because I don't know how easy it would be to maintain. You're going to have a struggle with compatibility as far as the plugins and using it for things like recording and interfacing with Pro Tools as it gets further and further out of date. So it's just a really interesting time we're in right now, where some very incredibly capable systems are for sale, but I just really don't know who the market is for these, at least domestically. If you were willing to ship these internationally, I think you would absolutely find a secondary market for them. But here domestically, I'm just not sure who's going to have 14 grand and be interested in a package like this. So if you have any ideas about that, let me know. Let me know what you think.